not talked about yet, but it's soon come out that he was a CIA informant.
He was a CIA.
Or he wasn't a CIA. I think he's protecting a lot of other people. He's not protecting himself because there's nothing there, but he's protecting a lot of people. Because Trump's now saying it's a hoax, the case is like a hoax or something. I mean, come on, you know it's not a hoax. He's been on the plane, many times. Mm-hmm. It's just he was never on the plane with the kids. I've seen the itineraries and I've interviewed all the victims. There's never been an instance where Trump was on a plane with these kids and a rape occurred. But that can't be said for Clinton, and it can't be said for others. While the Clintons were on the plane, while Bill Clinton was on the plane, there were rapes that occurred.
What you just heard was the first 45 seconds of the latest upload from O'Keefe Media Group. In case you're not familiar, O'Keefe Media Group specializes in these undercover sting video operations. They usually target high-profile politicians, business leaders. They've also gone after organizations like Planned Parenthood. Now, in this video, they were speaking with Glenn Prager, who not only worked for the DOJ, but was also a top investigator on the Epstein case. According to his LinkedIn profile, which, by the way, is still online as of the making of this video, he was at the U.S. Department of Justice for over 20 years and is currently still there. Now, if we take a look at these middle two paragraphs here, Mr. Prager brings more than 25 years of progressive experience in government oversight, investigations, and program integrity. His public service includes roles within the U.S. Department of Justice and the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Let's take a look at the next paragraph. During his tenure at the DOJ, Mr. Prager served as an inspector overseeing sensitive investigations involving major DOJ components, including the FBI, DEA, Bureau of Prisons, U.S. Marshals Service, ATF, and the U.S. Attorney's offices. Now, for those of you who are wondering how O'Keefe Media Group even knew how to investigate this guy, well, one of their citizen journalists actually ran into him at the airport. She saw his FBI badge on his backpack, and they just struck up a conversation, and she started recording. I've seen a lot of the devices they use. Sometimes they're hidden in coffee cups or on car key rings, really nondescript things where, someone would have no idea that they're being filmed. Well, as they were having their conversation, he started revealing a lot of things, such as how many of the cases didn't even move forward. And that's because Epstein would end up paying all of the victims off.
How about this whole Epstein thing that's like going on?
So I worked on that case. I used to interview all the victims. And my picture was 20 to 30 victims in Palm Beach that I was interviewing and dealing with and stuff like that. And then we go ready to go to trial, and they would flip. Epstein would just pay them off, and they were just like these little kids. They pay off their family. They're all broke kids and poor families, and so you pay them off like anywhere from $150,000 to $500,000. Nothing in that guy's world.
That makes a lot of sense, and it does confirm a lot of people's worst fears. And it also helps explain why he seemingly got away with it for so long. People have been wondering, hey, why isn't this guy being caught? Why isn't he being brought to justice? Heck, why don't people testify against him? Or why do they come out all these years later? And that appears to give a very clean explanation. But perhaps one of the larger bombshells in this entire conversation was the fact that he was in the CIA. And he not only said this once, but it was double confirmed. He said it, and then the citizen journalist asked again, and he confirmed it a second time.
I'll tell you this, because no, it's not talked about yet, but it's soon come out that he was a CIA informant.
He was a CIA.
Or he wasn't a CIA.
On top of all of that, there have been rumors and speculations that, hey, maybe Epstein is somehow connected to the Israeli government or Mossad. And similar to the last clip, Glenn Prager repeated this multiple times, so it's not as if he misspoke or his words are being misrepresented or mistwisted. There's no real way to take anything that he said here out of context when you're listening to him just saying the same thing over and over and over again.
So DOJ was settling the case, and they were just letting him, do house arrest, and they minimized his arrest. Part of that is because all the victims kept on flipping, and they didn't have anyone to go to trial with. The more importantly part is they didn't want to go after him. He's a asset for the United States and Israel for the CIA. I just know that's what he was, and that's why he was protected so long for this. And people turned a blind eye about all this garbage that he was doing in the United States. He had a lot of secrets. more about Israeli stuff than anything else. I mean, he was doing stuff for Israel and the United States. He was, he's working for both.
Now, one of the questions that a lot of people just can't wrap their heads around and just can't find a good explanation for is, why is President Trump all of a sudden changing his tune on the Epstein files, right? At first, President Trump was saying, release the files, we want transparency. And then all of a sudden, he just did a complete 180. That led to Democrats taking advantage of the situation and basically saying, oh, President Trump must be in the files, even though we all know that if President Trump was in the files or if he was some way implicated in illegal activity, the Democrats definitely would have leaked that by now. You take a look at all the leaks that they did during Trump's first term. You take a look at just how corrupt the Biden administration was. If President Trump was truly in these files, it would have come out during the Biden administration. Well, what's interesting is Glenn Prager claims that he believes that President Trump is actually protecting some other people. So there are multiple tidbits to pay attention to here. He says he hasn't seen all of the new information that's recently come out, so he doesn't know the new names that are involved. But he says unequivocally that President Trump did not do anything illegal and he did not do anything with any minors aboard the plane. But before we get into that clip, I would like to acknowledge Helga Shabalaba Ding Dong, JM, J. Russo, and TW, RIP Charlie Kirk, as the members of today's Governor's Club. These are people who give tips and super thanks to the channel. I am so glad that you're here and that you enjoy the videos. But next, here is what Glenn Prager had to say.
They claim that that Trump's involved in the rapes and all that stuff. And he wasn't. I mean, I've seen the agendas, I've seen the itineraries, and I've interviewed all the victims. There's never been an instance where Trump was on a plane with these kids and a rape occurred. But that can't be said for Clinton, and it can't be said for others. I remember that it was being killed because I know Clintons were on there. And
The Clintons were on there.
100%. And while the Clintons were on the plane, while Bill Clinton was on the plane, there were rapes that occurred. And that's what I'm saying. Trump, although as many flights as there were and all that kind of stuff, and on the island and all that stuff, he was never there during a single alleged rape. But Clinton for sure. And that's where the big cover-up was. I don't know what's new that I have never seen that he's so hesitant to now show what's going on, and releasing all those files. I think he's protecting a lot of other people. He's not protecting himself because there's nothing there, but he's protecting a lot of people.
Now, that would seem to track, right? If Jeffrey Epstein truly was with the CIA, that could jeopardize United States national security, Israel's national security, our alliance. So this appears, assuming we take everything he's saying at face value, there definitely are national security issues here. And so, President Trump could be protecting that. Maybe he's not trying to protect people who are bad guys or protect people who, have done ethically and morally terrible stuff, but maybe it's a matter of national security. I'm not saying that that's what he said or that that's what the case is. I'm just trying to figure out, why President Trump would all of a sudden change his tune after being adamant for so long that he would release the files. I get that it wasn't a cornerstone of his campaign, but it is something that he said repeatedly on different podcasts or when being interviewed. He would reference it a few times at campaign speeches. Now, again, it wasn't like a core promise, but whenever it came up, he seemed to be open to the idea. And other people, surrogates for the campaign, J.D. Vance, Don Trump Jr., they would all say the same thing. Well, what's really interesting here is James O'Keefe himself ended up trying to call Glenn Prager a multitude of times, and he recorded those. Here is a look at that.
Here he is. Hey there, is this Glenn?
Yes.
You work for the Department of Justice, correct?
No.
You don't work for the Department of Justice. You had a patch on your backpack that said FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, in the airport.
Yeah.
And you talked about how you interviewed the Epstein people, all the Epstein victims. Do you recall that conversation?
I didn't. No. No. How can I help you?
I wanted to confirm that you, in fact, did work for the Department. Hang on with the phone. Let's try calling him again. Glenn?
I'm not talking to you.
Well,
I don't know who you are. I'm not talking to you.
You already did speak to my friend.
Hey, now stop talking. I don't know who you are.
I'm a journalist. I need your help, sir.
I'm not talking to you or any journalist about anything.
Did you interview the Epstein victims?
I can't talk to you.
Sir.
And shortly after this, Glenn Prager ended up giving a response back to O'Keefe Media Group. He wrote, "I was approached in what I believed was a casual, non-professional context, and I later learned the individual was misrepresenting themselves. Thinking it was simply personal banter, I responded in kind. Any remarks from that exchange should not be interpreted as accurate statements or reflective of my actual work, conduct, or opinions. I want to ensure there is no confusion caused by that misleading interaction. Please stop calling and texting. It's approaching harassment. Printing any story related to my opinion is misleading and/or is completely inaccurate. To make it perfectly clear, I was not involved in any way, and any opinions are based on public information." So that's his explanation for what happened there. Now, let's say that that is true. Well, if that's true and he's currently working for the DOJ, then he needs to be fired, because obviously this guy can't be trusted. He's unprofessional. He's making stuff up. He's putting the reputation of the DOJ at risk. But let's say he was telling the truth. Well, then people like Pam Bondi have a lot of answering to do. And by the way, speaking of Pam Bondi, as part of that Undercover video, he revealed that yes, there is indeed tension between Kash Patel and Pam Bondi. Now, I covered this on the channel, but it wasn't like it was, the main news story of the day. It was kind of buried within all the news stories that were coming out. So sure, he could have made that up just based on publicly available information. But what are the odds? Now, there's no audio on the first part of this clip, but you can see the audio, like the subtitles here, just confirming they're fighting.
Who was like the one name where you're like, oh my God?
Now, the reason there wasn't any audio in that first part is because that was actually a teaser for part 2. So there is even more to come here. But like I said, either way, it is not a good look for Glenn Prager. Either he was lying, he was making all of this stuff up, and if that's the case, then he should be fired from the DOJ and whatever government jobs, because clearly he can't be trusted. Clearly he's just not holding himself to that level of professionalism that is required from a civil public servant. That just makes no sense right there. But let's say that he was telling the truth in all of this. Well, if that's the case, then it confirms a lot of people's worst suspicions about Pam Bondi, and she has a lot to answer to. So, as always, though, all of that is just my analysis and commentary. That is what's going on in the world of politics from my point of view, and I would love to hear from you. So, which version of Glenn Prager do you believe? Do you believe the original one, who was relaxed, he didn't know he was being filmed, and just talking freely, talking off the cuff? Or do you believe the polished statement that he sent out to James O'Keefe, saying, well, I didn't know I was being recorded, and you shouldn't take anything I said seriously. You can't trust my own words. He's basically saying, my own words are a bunch of nonsense. Why would anyone believe that? It was a personal interaction. Obviously, you guys know where I am, but I would love to hear from you. Look, I've covered O'Keefe Media Group before, and I've covered him when he was CEO of Project Veritas, and I know, Project Veritas is divided. A lot of people, or divisive, excuse me, a lot of people like what he does, and they believe in the undercover aspect, but then some people do believe that it is unfair to catch people off guard and to publicly put them out there when they didn't even ask to be recorded in the first place. So I see both sides of the argument, but when this guy, he's offering up all of this information freely, he has the FBI badge on his backpack, to me, you should be held to a higher standard, and whether he's lying or whether he's telling the truth, if he faces any professional consequences because of this, in my opinion, it's only his own fault, and he only has himself to blame. If you haven't already, though, please be sure to leave me a thumbs up. I know it's a simple thing to ask for, but it really does help me reach more viewers like you in the algorithm. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and to check out one of these videos.